Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome one and all to episode number 32 of The Adventure Continues, a Star Trek discussion. Coming to you live on Blaze, Rumble, and YouTube. This is a show where every other week we discuss a specific episode of the original series, the animated series, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, or Enterprise, or one of the 10 movies, and we will watch it and discuss the episode in detail. Sometimes with a guest, sometimes without a guest. But tonight, we are going to take a look at the very first pilot of Star Trek. No, I'm not talking about Where No Man Has Gone Before. That was the second pilot. I am talking about the pilot that starred Jeffrey Hunter as Captain Christopher Pike and his Starship Enterprise. And of course, joining me tonight is a very good friend of the channel and a very knowledgeable young man when it comes to Star Trek. And we were trying to do this show back in May, but then he had to report to sick bay. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in that guest. And that guest tonight is, of course, Spock of Spock's Friday Nights.
Hey, how's it going, chat? How's it going, everybody? Thanks for having me on, Mike.
Oh, you're welcome, brother. Thank you for being available to do this. And I know we had tried to do this back in May, but then you had to report to sick bay.
Yeah, I caught the Flungarian virus from planet Flungaria. uh, no, Bones let me out of the sick bay after a couple months, so I'm good. I'm ready to rock.
Yes, yes. This is an episode that ties to an original series episode, obviously, and that episode is the menagerie. But for this particular version of the episode, a lot of people didn't see it until it was released on VHS back in 1986.
Yep.
Before then, the only parts of this episode that people had seen were the parts that were in color. The reason why I mention parts in color is because for this specific episode, you'll see parts of it in black and white, and then the parts that were used for the menagerie are in color. But it also has the introduction from Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry. So that's what also makes this particular version unique.
Yeah.
As compared to anything else you might see. And
And yeah, it's very you like what's his name said in the comments here, uh, FKHC. He says that this is definitely a proof of a concept episode if we've ever seen one. Um,
mhm.
and you can easily tell from where the show picks off right after this. Outfits change, characters sort of change in their behavior. Um, but yeah, I think one thing for me that's kind of just a little bit of a backstory for me on this episode is when I was growing up, I saw this a bit differently. I think it was around the time where streaming services were becoming popular. So we didn't have as many as we had today, but we had Hulu and we had Netflix and some of the big ones. And I remember watching Star Trek, the original series, completely out of order. I always just assumed, when I was watching it with my sister, Captain Kirk was the captain, and then that's how it is, and that's how it's going to be. And then when I eventually went through the show myself and I saw the first pilot, the first episode, I had never seen it before. And I was
Mhm.
completely thrown for a loop. I just didn't know what was happening at first. And then that this was where they were going to go. I thought that was really interesting. And I really start to grow an appreciation for Captain Pike and the original concept of what they were going to be doing. Yeah, no, it was really knowledgeable to learn about this because if you haven't seen Star Trek in Order, I obviously recommend it.
And the thing about this is it was filmed in 1964. It was then shown to the NBC executives who thought the show was too cerebral for its own good. And they did something that isn't really done even today in television, and they ordered a second pilot.
Yeah,
And that's how we got Where No Man Has Gone Before with William Shatner as the captain. And of course, you'll even hear Gene Roddenberry say this. They had their issues with the test audience watching this episode. some of the people were appalled that there was a woman on the bridge, and some of the people didn't like Spock because he reminded them of the devil with the pointy ears and the
No
pointy
emotions.
eyebrows. Yep.
Yeah. The
But
audience in the '60s were really tough to impress.
mhm,
They were getting a lot of obviously great stuff around that time, but we um can arrogantly say that Star Trek, although not being the first piece of science fiction around that time, was the hallmark. It capitalized on the genre, and even though the audience didn't really grasp it at that time, thanks to Star Wars that we got later in the '70s, the reruns made it possible for us to get it back. And I
mhm.
think that's what really kind of goes to show that these shows can be timeless.
Yeah. Because of those reruns and syndication, we started getting the Star Trek conventions.
Exactly.
It was because of the reruns in syndication we had the first space shuttle named Enterprise. And of course, I do see Pat Wannabe over on the Rumble side. But folks, if you'd like to join us over on the Cosby side to watch the episode, just click on that Cosby link that's pinned to the chat on YouTube and Rumble. I'm getting it to the folks over on Blaze as we speak. So you're more than welcome to come over to the Cosby side. Now, once I hit play for the episode, you're probably going to have to hit play on the Cosme screen in order to actually see what's going on in the episode. But I also want to take the time to say hello to the Admiral herself, the Guardian of the Void, Keeper of the Dragons, Lady Mist.
Hail.
We also have Tim here, and of course, the previously mentioned Padawannabe.
It's good to see you guys.
Yes. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play, and here we go.
Let's do this.
And again, what you're seeing here is the introduction from Gene Roddenberry before the episode actually starts. But I thought this is an important piece of Star Trek history to show, especially with it being the 60th anniversary of the franchise. And yes, that's what they called it, Star Trek, the unseen pilot, because up until this point, nobody had seen it in its entirety. Outside of those who worked on it. And it's good to see Jason Fox, 540 Studio. Hope you're doing well, Chase.
Hail, Jace.
Now, have you actually seen this introduction before, Spock?
Yeah, once or twice whenever I rewatch the show. It's really I'm having a bit of an issue though, honestly, here on Cosme. I don't know what's going on. It was working
What's
earlier.
it? What's it doing?
It's just loading on the play. Earlier it was just like a black screen, but now it's just stuck on the play button loading. I'm gonna refresh again.
All
Sorry
right,
about that.
that's all right.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on here. Let me try leaving, rejoining.
I know Barron's had to do that a couple of times here. It's one of the major downsides of Cosme sometimes.
It's all right, technology.
Yeah, but it's still the best way to be able to do a watch party.
Indeed. Yeah, weird. Oh, what's going on? Maybe
Is
turn off my ad blocker. Maybe that's what's doing it.
that might be preventing it?
Mm. That sucks because I joined earlier and we got this working now. All of a
Here,
sudden, it's
here. I'm just gonna stop it,
no
and then
problem. No
I'll
problem.
upload it again.
Yeah, no problem.
Don't
Yeah, let's see if
worry.
it works this time. Grr.
It's technology. I'm not gonna let it stress me out.
Oh, it's
All
working
right.
now. Good.
Okay, good. Like I said, it's a Cosme issue, folks. Nothing I can really do about it.
But yeah, I've seen this a couple times.
But again, I do believe that this is an important piece of Star Trek history to show. Yeah, I could have waited till September 8th to show it, but we're going to show it now. And Tim says that he rented it from Blockbuster when he was a kid. Yeah, that's the thing. Whether it be Blockbuster, Warehouse, or just your local mom and pop video store, they did have some Star Trek VHSs available to rent back then.
Wish they had Blockbuster here still.
Unfortunately, I think Blockbuster did themselves in. And Lady Mist, is it working for you? Padawan, is it working for you? Exactly. And that's the thing. You have to wonder how the series would have been had Jeffrey Hunter's wife not talked him out of staying with Star Trek. And seeing shots like this with Gene Roddenberry talking, you don't realize how massive those sets really are until you see that perspective of
Oh
them.
yeah, they're really like spacious. That's what makes them feel so futuristic even today.
Exactly. And you can't tell me Gene Roddenberry didn't have an ego. Well, that's how some of the test audience viewed Spock back then. They viewed Spock as the devil. or else Gene Roddenberry wouldn't get that third chance if it wasn't familiar action adventure.
It's kind of amazing considering the kind of constraints he was under, what we were able to get from this
Hmm.
franchise. The season 1 and 2 and 3. It's it's amazing, honestly. Like, we got very lucky because obviously, if it was made today, there wouldn't be those kind of issues. But
No, but it would have been as thoughtful as the Cage or any other episode of Star Trek.
yeah, exactly.
And here's the original intro. Really, there's really not too much that's different from this intro to the intro that we get with William Shatner, but you can definitely see different fonts used, and which I've seen how it looks, with the episode in full color. So that's why I tried to replicate it in the thumbnail and also in the intro for tonight. Just trying to pay attention to those small little details. Barron was saying one time that he wished they had kept this version of the view screen.
Does have a certain charm to it.
Mm-hmm. And again, you're going to see it throughout this episode where it goes from black and white to color. Again, the color portions of the episode are the ones that were used in the menagerie. And of course, if you'd like to watch this episode along with us over in Cosme, click on that link that's pinned to the chat on YouTube, Rumble, and Blaze.
I think what's really great about the later episodes in this episode is they don't ignore the cage. They go back to it obviously later in the menagerie. So this means something too. If you watch this episode, you're not going to be disappointed as it being a forgotten event or something that was only just a test. It did happen in canon, which is nice to
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, and it was a clever way of showing this episode, at least parts of this episode, by putting scenes in the menagerie. When Kirk was viewing them, Spock was viewing them.
I love the way those doors sound when they close.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you'll notice something with this scene in particular, when Boyce gets in there, you'll see sort of the framing of what would eventually become the relationship of Kirk and McCoy. He's not there yet, Tim.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, The crew that we know of that comes later on, they're not here in this episode. It's mainly just Spock. Um, Nurse Chapel isn't a thing yet. Neither is Chekhov, Sulu, Uhura. They're not really here yet.
No, because this also takes place a few years before Kirk.
Which is great because I'm sure that's not how it was initially written, if you know what I mean. This was
Hmm.
this was how they were planning on it taking off because of the studio constraints. They had to, make some kind of excuse. A lot of writers and directors would personally just say, "Oh, this was a test. It didn't happen. It didn't exist. We're writing it off." But Gene Roddenberry didn't do that. This, like you said, happens years before, which is a good canonical explanation for why Spock feels like he's kind of young here, but also inexperienced, still learning.
And it also explains why the Enterprise looks slightly different interior wise, as far as the color scheme is concerned, and as far as even the quarters. And see, we learn about Pike here. He's stressed. Things are not happening the way he wants them to, and he wants to wind down from the Starfleet life.
Which to me is very different from Kirk. All he wanted to do was be out there. He didn't want to be stuck behind a desk.
And yeah, the Enterprise had printers. And then you got a little montage here while the Enterprise is at warp.
Yeah, these are some of
And
my
what
favorite things about Star Trek shows is if they manage to incorporate just a transitional scene like this while playing the main theme in the background, because usually they only save it for the intro, but TNG did that too. I remember when Riker was reconnecting the saucer to the part of the lower ship, and they were playing the theme song of TNG.
hmm
Those are good moments.
which went through a couple of iterations itself before they decided on the final version.
Indeed, I love the original theme the most, especially when you have the lady with the vocalization singing in the background. Like that's my favorite.
Of course, with the next generation, it starts off, as we all know, with the da 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 da, then it goes da 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 da, boom boom boom. Which I actually don't mind that version, but I'm glad the version that we eventually received was, you know, a combination of the original theme with the motion picture theme.
Yeah.
And see, this is something that current Star Trek shows don't do. Showing the different department heads coming to the bridge and saying what they found about our planet.
Make the crew seem very active than just the people who are on the bridge.
Hmm. And of course, number one's disappointed that she's not being invited onto the away team.
Consider herself lucky.
Yeah. And it's playing fine for you, Lady Miss Good. Again, folks, if there are any issues, please let me know. But I do appreciate everybody joining us tonight, and I hope you enjoyed this episode, the original pilot for Star Trek, known as The Cage. And, one thing, I don't know if you picked up on it, Spock, but when you look at the way the original set was actually, constructed and everything, and then the color palette they decided to use for it, it is very much like a Navy ship with
Yeah, it
the
is.
tones of
Especially
grays
the
and.
fact that they put on this jacket now that they're wearing.
Hmm. You can definitely see where the Navy was the inspiration as far as how these ships operate and continue to operate in Star Trek, at least from Next Generation on, not counting the Kurtzman stuff.
And that's how it should feel. Because this is what I would assume, futuristic Navy would be like if they combined with the Air Force and all the other branches. We'd get one giant branch that holds all those specialties, and that's what Starfleet technically is.
Hmm. They're the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force. At times, they have to be the Coast Guard, patrolling the Federation border. Now, I do want to ask Lady Miss or anyone else, have you seen this episode in its entirety before, or has it just been the scenes that were included in the menagerie? And Lady Miss has seen the episode before. Awesome. What did you think of the Telosians when you first saw them, Spock? I'll wait to ask him again when he gets back. Yes, we see who it is that has lured our Starfleet crew to Talos 4.
Sorry about that. What were you asking, buddy?
What did you think of the Talosians when you first saw them?
Very alien. I mean, obvious from the big head. Um, I think it's really creative for makeup because they could have just kept it easy and had like a human looking species and kind of like the espers, I guess, where it's less of a makeup transformation and more of like let's rely on some of the special effects to make them look alien. This is just for its time very advanced for the sculpting that they did for their heads and making it look real too. If I'm not even mistaken, I could be, but I think you even see some of their heads pumping a little bit, like the blood's flowing to their brain or something.
Hmm?
It's really insane.
But already things aren't adding up, but as far as Captain Pike is concerned, he's already having doubts.
I probably would too. Why are there humans here? Why haven't they tried to call for contact even if they don't have the access to it? Why are they just here in the first place? I guess is the main question.
Well,
There's
not
no
only
crashed
that,
ship.
not only that, look how barren the land around them is.
Right.
Very little to no vegetation. How were they able to find
Survive.
food, water, resources to survive?
Oh yeah, now those suspicions have pretty much been confirmed.
Hmm. And the Telosians have stunned Pike, and now they're taking him prisoner.
The original phasers. What they used to look like before we got them after this episode.
Also, remember, for this episode, they were called lasers. They weren't even called phasers yet.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were laser pistols.
No use.
Nope. Impenetrable.
So that would make number one next in charge now, right?
Yes, she would be the next in line. And that would also make Spock her second in command.
Yeah, first time being a first officer. Spock had a really tough role later on because he was taking on pretty much two jobs: science officer and first officer.
Mhm. But if there was anyone that was capable of holding those two positions
It's
and
him
not letting his emotion get in the way, yeah, it is Spock.
because he doesn't have. Well, he does, right? Because all, especially half human Vulcans, they just bury it deeper. But he doesn't have to deal with frustration. He doesn't have to deal with anxiety. He doesn't have to deal with these kind of things that we do. Obviously, the
because
man has a limit. He probably can't do like 40 jobs at once, but two, no problem.
I think Spock would be able to do maybe 3 or 4 jobs.
Yeah, before the ship just isn't viable anymore. You can't have one person run the entire ship.
No.
My God, those heads are insane.
Hmm. And I am hearing some audio coming
Yeah,
from
see
your end.
the head pumping. It's so weird.
Yeah.
That's so advanced for the time. Amazing for a pilot.
Yeah, they probably had a hose connected to it, and they had a pump that they were squeezing. But I am hearing some audio feedback from your end, brother, for the episode.
The specimen is about to boast of his strength, the weaponry of his vessel, and so on. Next. Frustrated into a need to display physical prowess, the creature will throw himself against the transparency.
You're in here when you test the strength of these walls, too? There's a way out of any cage, and I'll find it.
Despite its frustration, the creature appears more adaptable than our specimens from other planets. We can soon begin the experiment.
Of course, they would be telepathic because of those heads.
Inhabitants of this planet must live deep.
How could they not be with the size of their melons?
That's like a classic evolutionary trait among like animals here, and the more that you use something, the more not just big, but it becomes like a part of that specimen, that creature. Like we use our arms and our legs a lot, so we have opposable thumbs. So compared to other things on this planet, we're able to build, we're able to put things together and use our hands. Um, with them, they obviously seem to focus everything towards their heads, telepathy, everything possible, and that's why their heads are just like really huge.
Mhm.
Out of a person's own thoughts, memories, and experiences, even out of a person's own desires.
Wow.
Illusion is just as real and solid as this tabletop and just as impossible to ignore. They might want one report.
They may simply be studying the captain to find out how Earth people are put together. Or it could be something more.
Then why aren't we doing anything? Now that information stood up against hand lasers. But we
And lasers.
power against it. Enough to blast
Mhm.
Look,
It's such a funny name, considering what they're called later. If you took that out of regard, then maybe they would sound fine, but phasers just sound so much better.
Well, you could also try to come up with a reason and why they were called hand lasers back then, because
It's
maybe
very
some
practical.
starships were
Yeah.
using hand lasers while other ships were starting to use hand phasers, even though Enterprise kind of goes against that by introducing the hand phasers.
Yeah.
And now it's the beginning of the Tholotians using Pixel memories against it. Yes, except for Vina. She wasn't there on Rigel. And here comes Baron. Don't worry, folks. I even said that when we were watching the menagerie.
I forgot a little bit of how this scene plays out. I honestly thought it was a monster chasing him.
No, it's just Baron.
Is that his stomach rumbling, maybe?
Maybe.
Even though it was never meant to be a Western, the storytelling just feels very Western too, which I like. The way that they go about the scenes and the acting. I kind of miss that level of storytelling compared to now. Westerns were like the best. You even kind of get
Again,
that from Planet of the Apes too, the old ones.
just going to mention that. And just like Gene Roddenberry had said in the introduction, the network was looking for the show to be a Western.
Yeah. It's like no matter how much he may have tried to go away from that, he probably not just subconsciously but unintentionally enjoyed that because
Mhm.
that was what's popular at the time and I wish was still popular today.
Because there's some good Westerns out there, and good Western movies.
Oh yeah.
Shane's a good Western. Just, to name one of them. I mean, if you've ever seen the original 310 to Yuma, that's a good one.
Because this is
Or,
like your classic damsel in distress situation right here.
mm-hmm.
The back of their heads look like butts. Guess you could say they're butt heads.
That
Let him out of
reminds
this cage, butthead.
that reminds me of In Living Color sketch where they had characters called the Buttheads.
That's true, yeah, I remember that. Some of the best skits on there.
Mm-hmm.
So they can see how this president performs. They want to see how I react. Is that it?
See, notice how Pike's turning the tables on Solosians?
Yeah,
He didn't.
he doesn't give up. He's very. I think that's the one thing that freaks them out compared to these other humans that they've captured is they haven't played around with Starfleet officers before. Very strong-willed. They don't give up.
It's all part of the training.
Best part of humanity too. You're not going to learn much from a human who's your average Joe. You're going to learn more from somebody who's, like a Marine or an Air Force pilot, someone who's actually trained and skilled and has studied a lot of stuff and has the personality to just be more daring than normal people.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. I wish they
Yes,
did bring this technology out again.
and that's the thing. That is actually one of the phaser banks from the Enterprise.
It's so cool
They beamed it down, and now they're transferring power from the ship.
and still not enough. Because, like, how much do you want to bet that's, I think it is, right? They show later. This whole rock is just an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
That tells you how strong these illusions are.
And also, the thing is, too, who's to say that the hand lasers didn't actually cause some damage?
Right.
That's one of the illusions that the theologians are keeping from everybody. Did they or did they not break that door open?
They probably did. By this point, they probably already did. They just don't see it. Because they're believing so much that it's impenetrable already. It's
Yep,
that whole
because
mind over, some say
mind
mind
over
over
matter.
body, but this time it's like mind over illusion. So just training your own brain to just not pretend that this is impenetrable is tough because they think it's real. I think that's the kind of person that they're looking for, these aliens, is someone who has that capability to tell their mind what they see, what they can see versus what they're being told.
Mm-hmm. And see, we're finding out more about solutions. And that's what you should do. If you're going to introduce any character, whether they're your protagonist or antagonist, give us information as to how these characters operate.
Exactly. There should still be some mysticism and a lot of other things like their culture and all the obvious things, but learning about what they are, who they are, that's something that should be explained right away when dealing with any alien.
Hmm.
What is their capabilities?
And now we go into the Bible, two of each animal. And because Vina was giving away too much information, at least as far as the theologians were concerned, they punished her.
They sent her into an illusion? Probably. I wonder where she went. I also wonder if she really is human as she says she is, or if she's also a figment created by them.
So you see, the Telosians want to control Pike's mind. He has to do whatever they wanted to do, or he dies.
As tough as it is, he has to tell himself it's not real,
Mm-hmm.
You will now consume
even though they're so powerful.
That was probably just water with food coloring. That's exactly what the Telosians want. They want Vina and Pike to procreate and have a baby, develop a human civilization so the Telosians themselves can survive.
Buttheads.
So, what are your thoughts as this episode goes along there, Spock?
But they definitely, like he pointed out, they have limits to their powers. Um, One thing I'm curious about is as this goes on, what do they? Because we see him later in the menagerie. He's older. What do they do about age? Are they able to stop age? Like all these kind of questions, and I feel bad that she's kind of just going along with all of this. It's like she has no choice. Like she's a prisoner here.
And she has been a prisoner ever since the ship crash landed.
But Pike is proving that you can fight back, even if it's tough. Like you can have the option to not give them what they want, and their response to that is punishment with your brain, your own memories. But what
Mhm.
if you know, are pretty strong-willed enough, like him, to eventually convince yourself that they're not real? Their punishment doesn't really work anymore in that case, and
Mhm.
they're kind of wasting something that they can learn from. I think as this episode goes on, I would have preferred. I mean, every advanced species has their level of arrogance, of course, but it would have been interesting to see how these Thelosians would have interacted with Starfleet in a more friendly, standard first contact kind of way. Learn
Well,
from each other, trade from each other.
yeah, I mean, yeah, no one's supposed to go to Talos 4, but I'm surprised the Thelosians haven't reached out to Starfleet other than, creating the illusion for Kirk to go to Talos 4 for Pike to be there again.
Right.
But I'm surprised they haven't reached out to Starfleet because of some sort of crisis. I mean, I think that would have been a perfect opportunity for Deep Space Nine to go back to Talos 4 during the Dominion War.
Yeah, honestly, it's just at the end of the day, Pike is proving that they're vulnerable. As much as
Mm-hmm.
they have all these abilities, one wrong, even extinction level event won't be able to, they won't be able to survive that because
No.
it's just their brain that's creating these illusions. And as powerful as the brain is, you can't survive something that is actually happening. Like, for example, a volcano explodes on their planet, wipes out everything, or a meteor hits their planet. Those are things
Mm-hmm.
like I would assume, eventually they would need to reach out for help and consider the one species that they had trouble, I don't want to say dissecting, but the one species that they had trouble putting in their zoo, which is humans. And considering that maybe these are not your average type of organisms that we are having in the rest of our zoo, these are actually just as smart as we are.
Mm-hmm.
Even Q was afraid of us later on. That he shows that during our lifetime, if we continue to advance, we're going to be, if anything, more powerful than the Q continuum, which goes to
Mm-hmm.
show that we're very powerful in our own sense.
Yeah. Which was why he appears in Encounter at Farpoint and tells Picard and crew to go back
Yeah, because
because
he's
they
afraid
already
of
know
them.
the future,
He
but they
knows
also know the
everything. Yeah,
past.
he probably knows what happens to the continuum later on.
I'm being tongue in cheek here when I say the Continuum joins the Federation.
Never know. They might have no option because we just become so powerful. I think that's a reasonable possibility because of when you see it later on in Enterprise, we can literally control time now. Imagine
Mm-hmm.
what that's going to look like 50 centuries later. That's going to be insane. We're going to eventually become omnipotent. We're going to eventually learn how to shed our physical forms and become something even more. They even tell us, like in Orville, obviously it's a different universe, but they had a similar episode where they came across a being like that and they said, "You're going to
Mm-hmm.
become like this, but just it's going to happen way later." And I'm sure that's also been said in Star Trek too, that when they come across these species, you have the potential and you are going to become like this way later. It's just not going to happen immediately. So if that means anything, it means we're going to be. I mean, it's an arrogant point of view, of course. There's going to always be something stronger than us, even. But there's a potential inside every single one of us that we're not just animals to be meant to be kept in a zoo. And I think that's what the theologians are learning right now.
No, we have the ability to grow, the ability to learn, the ability to improve ourselves beyond what we are now.
Yeah. And from all the other species that they show us in Star Trek, you can see that that's a very unique trait to have. Because, like right now, you're seeing the Orions don't have that mentality. They're still stuck in slavery, where they
Mm-hmm.
keep like some of the oldest traditions alive. Um, or Klingons are just a warmongering species. Eventually, we're going to go extinct because of their wars. Um, there's a certain species like us that we can learn from mistakes. A lot of them can't. Vulcans are reactive. They're overreactive because they used to have a very savage life in the past. Instead of just like learning from it or clamping down, they clamped down way too hard. They became eventually a non-emotional species, and I think that's where we differ from them. It's like we had our caveman times. We had times when we were very savage, but we never invented anything like Kolinar. We just became better versions of ourselves. And if you see the progressional trait of that, it's just going to keep rising and rising to the point where, you know, we seem like we have magic. We seem like we're gods, but we're not. It's just we've advanced so much because of what we've learned from the past. A
Yeah,
lot of species can't do that.
one thing that Star Trek has been able to show in the past is that we're still vulnerable.
Yeah, because we're still biological. Even if you shed your physical form, energy is energy at the end of the day. It's something that can be swiped, destroyed, whatever. Because, you know, there's a lot of things in the universe that are not invincible. They might seem like they're invincible, like Q, but they're not. Um, the only thing that is, in my opinion, God. And,
Mhm.
you know, we're not ever going to be on God level at all. It's just going to seem like we are. You show somebody 100 years ago an iPhone or something, they're going to think it's magic. So that same kind of thing applies here. Is like when we see our future selves, the evolutionary trait of humans, it's going to seem like magic. It's going to seem like we've become gods, but we're really just more advanced, very
Mhm.
advanced. Advanced is not even the right word because it's just such a understatement.
If our measurements and readings are an illusion also, one could find oneself materialized inside solid rocket.
Hmm.
And see, that's a good point that Spock brings up.
Pure logic. That's why when we were discussing before, they still seem to have the bridge of what they were going to make Spock into, but they had him more emotional in this sense. Um, whereas he still gains that bit of logic as well.
Mm.
But they focused on logic being 100% of his personality.
Well, you got to give DC Fontana the full credit for developing the character Spock when the
Hmm.
series actually was picked up and we had the 3 seasons of Star Trek.
Great writer. Arguably, DC did more than Gene Roddenberry did, but that's a whole other
Mhm.
discussion. It was the writers who really carried the show.
Yep, especially when Gene Roddenberry left the show before season 3 because he was having a dispute not only with the studio but with the network.
Because we all know he didn't believe in God. So when this show decided to take that into respect, especially the original series, that God, you know, is a big part of Kirk, and not just Kirk, but the rest of Starfleet, that they still believe,
And a
if you
higher
want to say,
power.
yeah, in a higher power, whether it be Catholicism or something else. I personally interpret it as, you know, Catholicism, you know, Christianity. They still believe in that, and there is still that God up there that, you know, I forget the quote, but he even says something in the original series that you're not as powerful as God. You're not like God. There's only one powerful person like that, and that's God. I don't think Gene Roddenberry really was down with that idea. So, you know, to each their own, of course. He's the original creator, but I feel like it is a bit arrogant to think we've outgrown religion. I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing to
Well,
outgrow.
which is also funny because Gene Roddenberry had episodes where a crew member was getting married.
Yeah,
Think about the Doomsday Machine.
exactly.
The beginning of that episode, you see two crew members preparing to get married before they're alerted to what happened to Matt Decker's ship.
She often has fantasies involving you. All I want to do is get my hands on you. Can you read these thoughts? Images of hate, killing.
The other new arrival has
Well, he's
completed
figuring it out. Because remember
Hmm.
earlier, he charged at them and they didn't
Yeah,
anticipate it.
and the Telosian was startled.
Hmm.
You'll find my thoughts more interesting.
They can't read primitive thoughts.
Emotions so heavy.
Yeah, it's all coming back to me now. I remember this.
Wrong thinking is punishable. Right thinking will be
And I actually took this scene and made it as a clip for Pop Talk.
an effective combination.
I just haven't played it that much.
Wrong thinking is punishable.
No, don't help me. I have to concentrate. They can't read through hate.
That's such a tough thing, though, especially if you're not really a hateful person. You have to channel that energy in.
Hmm.
Because I personally don't like to think of thoughts like that, but if I have to in order for my own survival, that's kind of what Pike is faced with here.
Yep. It's either he does whatever is necessary to survive, or he stays there in that cage for the rest of his life. He succumbs to their will.
And us humans are not meant to be caged. We like to do our own things, and we want to feel free.
Look at what happened during the lockdowns, and once the lockdowns were over, how people have been acting.
Exactly.
We're social people. Watch what the Theologian does here.
Oh, man.
Sweat your head off. All right. Now you try one more. Try anything at all. Break your neck.
Damn.
Release.
See, this is why I like Pike. Not because he wants to kill people, but he's so intense. Like
Hmm.
Kirk is intense too in his own right, but he's more of a politician, if anything. I like Kirk because he always tries to look for the better alternative. He's smart. He's a problem solver. So is Pike. He's very much a problem solver, but he has no problem showing intensity at all. If he needs to fight,
Yeah,
he's gonna fight.
he has no problem letting any alien encounter, any first contact situation be analyzed, and once he has the information, he'll tell them on his terms, this is exactly what you're going to do.
Even when Kirk went against Gorn, I would say that's more of like a problem solving event where he figures
Hmm.
out how to make that weapon and attacks Gorn with it. It's not like he immediately rushes into him, starts manhandling him, and punches him. Like they do fight, but you can see that Kirk's trying to figure out a quicker way to take him down. Pike is just like, I don't care, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah, because Pike's had enough of their games.
He's sick of this shit. Yep.
I'm willing to bet you've created an illusion this laser is empty.
And Pike has already been through enough. We already found out about it early on in the episode when he's talking to Boyce.
Wow, look at he's he's very smart, and this is the first human they've dealt with that's like on this level of genius. He
Hmm.
knew he made an illusion, and he told him to reveal it. It's very crazy. The power of the theologians too, that he made that hole, he broke the glass there, and we weren't even able to hear it or see it because he's
Hmm.
holding us back from seeing it.
Yep. Putting that illusion in Pike's mind.
It's a very powerful illusion. If anything, they're the most for a pilot episode. They're one of the most creative aliens I've ever seen because
Yep.
of their ability.
And look at the damage that the ship's phasers did.
Yeah. See, I had a feeling. I was starting to remember some of the episode, and I'm like, wait, isn't that an illusion? And yeah, that's just insane what it was able to do. Just destroyed the whole rock face.
As you see, your attempt to escape accomplished nothing.
I want to contact our ship.
You are now on the surface where we wished you to be. With the female
And the
object,
Colossians are still playing games.
you will now begin carefully guided lives.
Start by burying you.
That is your choice. To help you reclaim the planet's surface, our zoological gardens will furnish a variety of plant life.
Call me evil, I would have shot him right there. I don't need to deal with any more mind games.
The lives of these two Earthwomen. Since our lifespan is many times yours.
And see, you're hearing the original voice.
Yeah,
right
the
here.
original voice.
To a society trained to serve.
They're both pretty cool. I honestly can't
Yep.
personally decide which one I like more.
You give me proof that our ship is all right. Send these two back.
And see, that's another important aspect of this particular pilot and this particular version of the pilot is you get to see things how they originally were,
Hmm.
hear things how they originally sounded.
Is this a
So
deception?
it really adds a lot of weight to this episode and to what they're trying to accomplish with this first pilot.
You still have time to get underground. Go on. Just to show you how primitive humans are, Colossian. You go with her.
If you all think it's important, then I can't go either. I suppose if they have one human being, they might try again.
Hmm.
Yep. Who's to say that it would have been Kirk's Enterprise lured in, or, Kirk on board the Farragut?
Didn't consume much time. Are you prepared to assimilate?
We had not believed this possible. The customs and history of your race show a unique hatred of captivity. Even when it's pleasant and benevolent.
Well, no shit.
Mm-hmm.
Too violent and dangerous a species for our needs.
Yeah,
They can't use you.
you can't use humans at all. You're right. They should have brought them back in Deep Space Nine, knowing how different we are
Mm-hmm.
from who they usually put in captivity.
And also, Cisco wouldn't have put up their illusions.
He would have put a great fight. Honestly, he's very much like Pike in that regard. If anything, more prone to intensity.
You were our last hope.
Like he punched Q across the face.
Mm-hmm.
Picard never hit me. I'm
Not
not
Picard.
Picard.
Listen, we are transportable.
Let's get back to the ship.
I can't go with you.
Sir, it just came on. We can't shut the power off.
Love the outfits so much.
Mm.
They still don't have those in Star Trek Online, funny enough. Would love to get them one day.
And they should. I mean, they were used in the second pilot where No Man Has Gone Before, and
True. I'm optimistic. They did recently only add, I think, 6 months ago to a year ago, they only just did add the motion picture outfits, so they're getting there. It's just they've been consumed with all of the new Trek stuff that they haven't really been thinking about episodes like this.
and I know it would be expensive for them to do, but I really think at this point, with the game having been released 16 years ago, they need to rebuild it from the ground up.
I agree. Oh, she's getting older.
Yep, we're seeing
Wow, that
her.
transition is very impressive.
We're seeing how she truly looks.
And the scar across her face. Wonder how she got that.
Probably from the crash.
You see why I can't go with you.
This is the female's true appearance.
They found me in the wreckage. Done. Look, right. They rebuilt me. everything works. But they have never seen.
So this answers my question, sort of, if they can stop aging and stuff like that, or is it just an illusion while it still happens underneath?
It's still an illusion, unfortunately.
So you'll still die of old age, even if you look young. That's a trip.
It was necessary to convince you her desire to stay is an honest one.
You'll give her back her illusion of beauty.
And more.
Wow. Oh, her own Pike.
Her own Pike, however, if you remember at the end of the menagerie, they do colorize this footage, and it's the Pike that we meet in the menagerie that's been beamed down, and they're together again.
So that, okay, then is it this Pike or is it the one that they're sending down right now that we see in the menagerie?
It's this Pike.
The one is still on the ground?
Yeah, the one that's still on the ground that we see in the menagerie. By that time, he's been in the wheelchair because of the radiation accident.
Which is unfortunate.
And by the time all said and done in the menagerie,
What's happened to Venus?
they use that same footage that we just saw in the
Right.
cage, but it's in color instead of black and white, and it's Pike reunited with Bina.
Yeah,
To live
that's
out
right,
the
because
rest
he
of his
goes
life.
back.
Mhm.
Because he's basically going through the same thing she was going through with the crash. He wants to
Mhm.
have the illusion that he's okay. Wouldn't you? If you were really,
Yep.
like, messed up and, you just don't have that confidence anymore because of an accident that happened to you or something, the illusion kind of helps you. It's
The
also still an
illusion,
illusion.
the illusion helps hide the fact of what your actual appearance is, the reality, like
Hides the
you
trauma.
mentioned.
Yeah.
But that's how some people live. Some people would rather live in their own fantasy than reality.
Personally, hopefully nothing as bad as a radiation accident happens to me, but I'm very content with living as an old man. I wouldn't want an illusion. It would
No.
bother me personally, because I know it's not real. Even if some people are like, well, I don't care, I would. I would always care.
Hmm.
Engage. Ah, such a good episode.
It is. It's the foundation of what we received for the original series. Like I said, for the animated series, continued on in Next Generation, DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise, and even the movies.
Yeah. Thank God for that. Anyone who thinks that this is bad or looks too dated for them to watch, they're missing out on some really great stories.
Mhm. Just because it's in black and white doesn't mean you should dismiss it.
Never. I mean, I love Lucy, and all these amazing shows are in black and white.
Hmm.
Just wanted to share with you something that may lift your spirits as it did mine those many years ago. All that nonsense about the dangers of mixed races living together on a spaceship or anywhere. And some parts of our country were certain to refuse to televise Star Trek.
And remember what Gene Roddenberry is saying here.
Supposedly flood our mail.
This was recorded 40 years ago, folks.
In all the years of Star Trek, we never
So for anybody who wants to act like it's a brand new thing, no. It's been going on for 40 years, even longer than that.
No, it's
Talking
not fair
about
how they were treated in the very
no.
beginning, in the 60s. I really appreciated Gene's vision in the beginning before he started getting into the religious aspects of it, because I agree with him. Humans are so much more. The human condition is a story to tell with love, greed, hatred, sex, everything you can think of.
Mhm.
This is when Paramount really was at its peak.
Yep.
Man, that was really great. Thanks again for showing me. You know, it's like reconnecting with a piece of my past as well. Seeing this as many times as I have, just understanding why I loved Star Trek, because when I watched it out of order with my sister, I was like, this is awesome. I like how I didn't understand it at that point. I was like, oh, I really like the conversations, the fights. This is really cool, but I didn't know what it all meant. And when I watched it by myself from the very beginning, from the cage and then so on, I started to really understand that this is a story about the human condition,
Mm.
and that's in a way what makes it still a western, because a lot of westerns would do that as well, showing what it means to be human, showing what it means to love, to care, to all these things.
To
um
survive the long journey of going across the country at the time,
yeah,
because it wasn't an easy trek.
no, no pun intended.
No, none intended at all. The journey was a long, arduous journey, different weather conditions. Not everybody was able to survive the journey. Some people probably wouldn't be able to survive it if you put them in that situation today. And Lady Miss, you're welcome.
Yeah, because even if it's just a science fiction show, would somebody today, would even Kirk, would I'm sure Kirk would, but would any of the new captains, even from other shows, would they be able to figure out what he figured out? That hatred, the most primitive thoughts, are like invisible to them. Like just the
Picard would
the level of
probably
thinking.
Picard would probably try to negotiate with the Telosians.
Yeah, because he was very prone to being a politician as well. That's why
Hmm.
I'm like not sure. But even he was tortured by Cardassians,
Yeah.
and he broke free
And,
of that.
and honestly, just like the Prophets used the attack at Wolf 359 against then Commander Cisco, I think the Telosians would use that or another event against Captain Cisco.
Yeah, maybe even the passing of his wife.
Mhm. And, we would find out something that had really bothered Janeway outside of her, father passing away.
Hell, the caretaker was traumatic for her enough. Just being,
Hmm.
just knowing what sent you so far away.
Yeah.
It's like it's one thing not knowing what it was, and you have to figure out what it was and the mystery, but knowing that you probably could have avoided it by not going there probably bothered her so much that I wish I didn't take the ship out that day. I wish I didn't go with the crew out that day, because we would have never been sent to the Delta Quadrant. Like I'm sure all these kind of traumatic events, they live inside every single one of us. We all have our own traumatic event, of course. And that's exactly what the Telosians, not just humans, but they use against every species that they capture, which goes to show it's universal. Every species that they've captured and they've put in captivity seems to deal with the same kind of thing. That's why they're so pro at this. They're able to show them a really horrible memory and then keep them entrapped in it forever. And so that they can study and feel what they're feeling and then have them breed. But they picked the wrong species in this episode to do that.
Yep, they picked the wrong species. They picked the wrong captain.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. They didn't know who they were messing with.
And the thing about Star Trek is that every captain has their strengths. Every captain has their weaknesses. And what we saw in this episode was Captain Pike's resolve to use violence as a very last resort.
Right.
Once he figured out how the Telosians were doing their telepathy, he knew, even if he didn't want to, that violence was going to be the only way to get him and Vina out of there.
He put it together. He found the
Mhm.
puzzle pieces and he put it together, which is hard to do for anybody. That's why I'm always curious. Like, what if anybody else figured that out? because it obviously seems like she didn't, the other human that they captured, or maybe she did, but she didn't want to leave because of what happened to her.
Mm-hmm.
There's so
Now,
many questions you're left with.
outside of the captains of any of the series, which character do you think would have been able to play 3D chess, 4D chess against the Telosians with their mind control and the illusions they created?
Tuvok, I think. You know, if I'm not saying Spock, because Spock wasn't obviously able to figure that out. He sort of did, right, in the teleporter room when he was saying
Mm-hmm.
like you could accidentally materialize yourself into a rock. So he was starting to piece it together, but he didn't have firsthand experience with the Thelosians to know like hatred was one of their things. And who out of all Vulcans have displayed, you know, some kind of frustration kind of personality? Tuvok. As much as he was a pure-blooded Vulcan, and as much as he, you know, always tried to bury his emotions, he never could. So it tells you that not just half humans, but Vulcans in general are prone to this kind of effect. Frustration being a big one. You know, his relationship with Neelix being one, or the rest of the crew, like with Tom Paris. I feel like eventually he would have figured it out, um, where it would have come at a cost, right? Because with Vulcans, if they release any bit of hatred or um, old primitive behavior, they have the risk of reverting to their old primate self, like how Vulcans used to be, because they were very, very dangerous at that time. But he would have probably put it together and realized it's worth it because I don't want to be stuck inside of this cage anymore. He's too loyal to Starfleet and he wants to get out. Um, and if not Tuvok, uh, probably Chakotay as well from Voyager, or from TNG, maybe even someone who would have had a cool, you know, defensive against them, even if she's not as powerful, would have been Deanna, because she's an empath. So she would have probably felt some kind of emotion from when she gets angry or she gets frustrated. She senses a sense of startlement from the
Mm-hmm.
Thelosians, and she would be like, oh, maybe this is what I can use. But for anybody else, I feel like it still would have been quite a puzzle because you don't know until you know. Like Pike only figured it out because he was really frustrated and wanted to choke the Thelosian, and then he saw that they got startled and he was confused by that. You know, anybody else would have just ignored that, but he saw and he was realizing like, oh, you guys usually anticipate everything I do. How come you didn't anticipate that? So he was just constantly fixating on that, and then he realized that hatred is the one thing that they can't read. Primitive thoughts is the one thing they can't read. So if you take any of the most emotional characters in Star Trek, they probably would have figured it out. So I would probably go with Deanna.
Piper would have figured it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Riker. Um, who else?
Kira would have figured it out
Kira.
eventually.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, for sure. She gets angry, she gets frustrated. Anyone who you can think in Star Trek who has those personality traits would have probably figured it out. But they also have to equally be aware. They have to be self-aware because they can get angry and still miss that. Oh, they got startled by that, and they usually don't anticipate. They usually anticipate They could have that could have flown over their heads. It didn't happen to Pike though, because he's thinking about everything as it happens. He's keeping everything in a stored bank in his head, and it's almost like he has a level of respect simultaneously. He's respecting what they've told him. He remembers what the Thelosians said, and he's not letting that part of that information be forgotten. So, since the beginning of the episode, when he knows that they're the masters of illusion and that they can read his thoughts, he kind of kept that. So, it
Yep.
was easy for him to piece together because of how smart he is. I would say if you're just angry and you're not thinking, then you're probably going to miss that aspect.
Yeah, and let's say this had happened in Deep Space Nine. I think the character that the Telosians really would have messed with her mind is Dax. And the reason I say that is because of the previous host. They would have found a way to use the memories of the symbiote against Dax.
Right. It's hard to say. Maybe even most of the Starfleet officers they put in there would probably figure it out Maybe it's not that hard of a puzzle piece as we think it is. But I have to assume that because their illusions are so convincing, you're not thinking about everything as much as Pike was in this episode.
Hmm.
You're not going to allow yourself to be convinced. You're not going to allow yourself to be because remember when they first threw him onto Rigel? He wasn't already believing like, oh, I'm on Rigel. Wow, how did I get here? No, he knew immediately this is an illusion, and he's
Yeah,
still in the cage. So you have to have a character like that who isn't easily convinced by any illusion. Um, maybe Jadzia Dax isn't like that. Maybe she is convinced very easily, or maybe she isn't. We can't really say for certain, other than what we already know about those characters. I know she's very smart. She definitely has a lot more memories compared to most crew members, because of the symbiote, and she has like hundreds of years of memories, so they could easily use it against her. But um, it's really hard to say. I think personally she would have figured it out. Maybe not as quick as Pike, but she probably would have figured that out as well. I think anybody you throw in there, as long as they're self aware and they're not easily convinced by illusions, they're going to figure it out. And they're going
hmm,
to see, like, oh, there's a pattern here. Why can they react to this, but they don't react to that, sort of thing?
because it would be something for any of the characters really to analyze, to deduce. Okay, this is my current situation. This is how I get out of my situation. Now that I figured out why the Telosians are doing this.
Yeah. And, maybe we can take a little pride in the sake that humans are problem solvers at a core. So, um, not saying Jadzia and Spock and Tuvok aren't, but we don't have any of our, I want to say, not just cultural traditions like Kolinar or something, or a symbiote inside of us blocking that instinctive gut feeling. We're going based off of what we know. We're so young compared to everybody else in Star
Mhm.
Trek. I feel like that innocence, that level of uh, what's it called? Like, I want to say babiness, that level of how young we are compared to everyone else. We don't like to feel trapped. We don't like to feel like we can't solve something. We're naturally always going to be problem solvers. We
Mhm.
created warp drive so that we could go into space, right? Zephyr Cochrane. And little did we know we'd make contact with aliens and become a part of a huge, vast organization that you see happening in Enterprise and then eventually becoming the Federation. Um,
Mhm.
we are naturally always going to figure things out more than what the other species in Star Trek do. That's just, again, something we can take pride in. Not saying we're smarter than everybody else, but we have our own traits, just like Vulcans have their own traits that are better than us, and we're better than them in some things as well.
Yeah, Star Trek has always shown that we're capable of adapting to our
Exactly.
situation.
That's funny you say that. That's exactly what the theologians even mentioned in this episode, is that this species seems to be more adaptable than any of the other ones that we've captured. That's a hint right there that
Mhm.
they're not dealing with something of the ordinary kind.
I mean, you look at it this way too. Since humans first appeared on this planet, being able to adapt to the changing climate of the Earth over you know many thousands of years
Yeah,
to get to where we are now. That's a testament to our resolve.
exactly. And you could even say the reason we solve things is instinctual, or is it something we've learned from history? I would personally go with instinctual, but history helps, like it helps us understand why we are this way. And it also strengthens that instinctual response. If you believe you're a problem solver, you are going to be a problem solver. It's kind
Hmm.
of those things. If you don't ever believe in it, if you don't know about it, it might show up subconsciously. Like you're stuck somewhere, you're a caveman stuck in a cave, you're trying to get out, and he doesn't know anything about history, he doesn't know anything about the world wars, he doesn't know anything about imprisonment, but somehow, some way, instinctually, he still figures out a way to get out of there. That's just humans for you. That's what we are,
Hmm.
that's what we're born with, that kind of level of decision making that other species don't seem to have. We all have something that's like not better, but unique compared to anyone else. Just like Vulcans are so damn strong and they're able to suppress emotions. You take a human through Kolinar, I don't think they're going to be able to do that. I don't think they're going to be able to suppress their emotions as easily as a Vulcan can.
No, I don't believe that a human would be able to survive as well as a Vulcan.
No.
And humans again have shown throughout history that we can put up with a lot of crap, take a lot of crap. But as far as going through something like the Kolinar, the test of will, the test of logic, I don't believe that we'd be able to do it.
I don't either. No. Because it's just part of us. Where it seems like with Vulcans, they have a different physiology to enable them to be able to do that. It goes as far as into the science of certain species. We have a different biological makeup compared to them. That's why when you approach some species in Star Trek, they call it primitive, and not only primitive, some are even confused by our emotions. Like, how do we have these emotions? What are these emotions? It's very human of us, and when they say that, it means it's very unique, because there are probably other species out there very similar to us, of course, not disputing that, but there's something about our history, our specific history, and our physiological makeup that makes us who we are, and that can't be ignored, because that's the Federation, that's primarily humans,
Mm-hmm.
and we have advantages that certain species don't have, and that's very much shown in this episode, in my opinion, with Pike. He shows the best version of ourselves. As much as you might not like to be a hateful person or want to kill or make threats and stuff like that, he shows us that we're not going to take this as an answer. We're not going to be imprisoned. We're not going to be stuck here. We're going to keep figuring this out. We're going to save somebody also in the same, meantime, like that lady. Like, he was protective of her even though he didn't know her. Um there's just so many things you can take away from this episode, that he shows the best part of the human condition.
Yeah,
He's a
and that's what
Yeah,
Gene Roddenberry was trying to relay to everybody for Star Trek. Star Trek was supposed to show the best of humanity, what we could potentially become. Not what we
right.
are now, but what we could become. A better
100%.
version of ourselves, like you said, a more compassionate version of ourselves, a more understanding version of ourselves, where we don't let our own differences decide our fate. We take pride in each and every person's differences.
Internet makes that tough. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
they didn't make they didn't equate for that in the past, in the 60s, or in
Uh,
even the 80s. They never thought about social media. And if they did, it's another brand new ethical dilemma that I feel Star Trek could tackle in its newer shows, because ethical
I
questions are
think
always brought
I
up.
think it could, but you also have to remember the internet, as far as Star Trek was concerned in the '60s, didn't exist. It
Right.
wasn't until the mid '90s that a lot of us ended up getting the internet.
And it extorts the idea of us being different from each other, and it sort of celebrates the negative behavior, because you would like the idea that the internet celebrates the idea that we're all different from each other, and it's a good thing, and we appreciate everything. But the internet's not like that. There's a reason we always say it's cruel. It's the internet. Like, there's bound to be just no rules on there, and the more that continues, it's harder for us to reach a future that Gene Roddenberry showed, where we're very compassionate. People don't want to be compassionate anymore, unfortunately. They just don't like the idea of showing sympathy, even if you don't have to, because they see it as a
Because
weak thing.
life itself isn't like that. You
Right.
mentioned to somebody that you don't like a particular TV show, movie, game, a
It
particular
turns into
book.
a whole war. You're
Yep.
retarded, man. What does that take? Like, dude, just kill yourself. Like, bro, like, this is so trivial. It's such a silly thing to say over something that's so trivial to me. I've never understood people like that. Like, whenever someone approaches me and they, they love Star Trek's newer shows, and as much as I don't like them, I've just never been like that. And I know not everyone's the same. It's just I wish people were more compassionate. That's all. And it's unfortunately seen as a weak thing. Once society shows that being kind is not weak, we'll eventually reach this kind of utopia that Gene Roddenberry envisioned. Of course, we should never give up, stubbornness and resolve and all these things that still make us who we are. Of course not. I'm not saying be hippies, but we still have to consider other people's feelings. Don't be super inclusive, of course, because that's how you let weird things happen, obviously.
Mhm.
But you still have to consider everybody a human at the end of the day. Um, and they have to do the same. It's very hard to do that when it's one sided. I think, especially when the other group thinks that they're a minority. We're all human. In the end of the day, we're not a minority. We're all the same. We all think the same. Well, not think the same, but we all have the same brains. We all have the same potential. It's just obviously in today's day and age, potential seems different because of where we're placed. Whether we grow up in a rich society, a poor society, what have you, we're still all capable of doing the same things. And that's one thing we have to remember as humans is we're all just rude right now. And I think that's got to change eventually. And that's because of the internet, honestly. The internet has really made it vocal to not just say your own opinion. Of course, I'm a big advocate for the freedom of speech, but it's the opinion of being just plain rude that I don't think goes anywhere. Like you want to talk to somebody about, like you said, a movie or a video game or something, it starts going towards an unhealthy conversation where it shouldn't. It should just be a simple agree to disagree conversation if you guys aren't on the same page. But nobody is that mature, unfortunately. The internet is known for being immature. So those are things that have to eventually, in my opinion, change
We
if we
don't
want to
even know
reach
how to
somewhere.
socially interact with each other in our everyday lives when we're out and about.
Right.
I mean, heck, I'm sure out there where you live, the way people drive, they don't have patience. They're in a hurry all the time. I know in my area, people don't have any patience at all when it comes to driving.
Yeah. Obviously, like it's way more concentrated in certain areas, and that's mainly based off of reputation alone. Because it has the reputation of being this way, we should continue to be this way. No, be better. Be better. Don't let it turn into a clown show, like how Cash says. Don't let this turn into a joke. Don't give it this reputation just because it has the preceding reputation. California, for example, right? Like it shouldn't just always be considered the way it is because that's how people are. If people are bad in traffic, then they're cussing you out or they're flipping you off or something like that. That's obviously a behavioral reaction. That's just how people are when they drive, I guess. I've never been that way confrontational in the sense where it's not necessary. Of course, you got to stand up for yourself and defend yourself. And when you're
Hmm.
angry, you lash it out. But some people I feel like just lash out because they want to, and that's just who they are. A person who's always angry. And that's not a good thing. And I feel like the internet is somewhat responsible for that, honestly. It kind of programs you to be like this.
Well, people think, you know, they can be bolden on the internet,
Right.
saying whatever they want on the internet. Why?
And not
Because
face any consequences. Yeah.
yeah, because they're behind their phones, their tablets, their keyboards.
It's hard to grow as a society once you just like, especially a compassionate society. If you watch the original series, you watch even the Next Generation, they're all nice to each other. Of course, you have your rivalries, you have your crew members who aren't a fan of each other, but they're not going out of their way to curse at each other, fight each other. They just ignore each other. If anything, that's the healthiest thing you can do. They don't even gossip. Sometimes they might. I don't know. Maybe that's some part of Star Trek we haven't seen, but from what I've seen, they don't really even gossip about another crew member. Um, Like even at the cafeteria, the lunch areas, they don't really talk about that stuff. They just talk about what they're going to do next, how excited they are for their mission. Someone sits down with them, they're like, "Oh, hey, it's good to see you," even if they don't know that person too well. It's
Mhm.
just that level of equal respect for every person, as if you're treating them the way you'd like to be treated, you know?
Well, even going into the mess hall or tent fort or any gathering place on board the ship where you've seen a character solving a problem, saying, "Look at this, schematic that I've drawn up," or "Look at this information I was able to figure out with this virus," for example.
Right. They're constantly working. They're
Hmm.
constantly thinking. It's
Even
just
during their
because
off
that's what
time.
they're trained to do. Yeah, in their off time, because it's not just to them off time, right? Like, oh, okay, I can finally take a break from this boring crap. No, that crap is what they enjoy doing. That's why they do it in their off time. It's because it's like, how I like making music. What if music was an important part for somehow? I don't know how, but if it was like an important part for being in Starfleet, even when I am done teaching my music class, when I go to the mess hall and eat something, I'm still going to talk about music. I'm still going to talk about what I'm working on. That's just how people are when they are invested in something, especially if they're trained to invest in something that they love. Because remember, Starfleet, right? Like Earth in this point of time is merit based. They succeed based on being the best versions of themselves. And that's more of a different topic to discuss about. Like that's kind of breaking away from the society that we're in, and it's a long conversation because I'm probably not the best to talk about breaking away from the current society since I'm so grateful for what we have today. It's
Mhm.
just it's just hard to see certain parts of it being taken advantage of. I think the internet is a great thing, an amazing tool, but it's been used to spread hate 100%.
Yeah, and we're all to blame for it because we all use it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's probably why I personally don't get involved in too many comment sections on anything. I just don't really have the patience for it.
I look at it as a waste of time unless there's something that I happen to know quite a bit about. Then I'll put my 2 cents in there. But a lot of times I see what some people are arguing about and say, folks, there's better things to do than to argue with somebody on social media or even during a live stream.
Yeah, sometimes you just want to keep what you're saying to yourself, or if you need to say
Hmm.
it, just state it. But
Yeah.
going back and forth for me is or even not even just back and forth. Sometimes I'll see a comment on Instagram, someone makes an opinion about something, even if I don't agree with it. They get 50 or 60 replies of people saying the same exact thing. Are you
Mhm.
dumb? Are you dumb? Are you dumb? Like, how many times do you guys have to ask that question? If you literally scroll through the previous comments, you'll see people have already asked it. So, what is the point in continuing this train? I feel like people just love to be ironic, or not even just ironic, but just be a meme for the sake of being a meme. And it's kind of annoying, to be honest with you. I'm the
I,
first person who loves memes, but sometimes they can get out of hand.
yeah, and I think what a lot of us need to do in this day and age is choose our battles. Is it
Yeah,
really worth arguing with somebody in person, online over something, you know, as minimal as a costume change, say, in a comic book character, or, you know, maybe a change in a part of information that we received before, if it's
yeah.
so minor.
Unless it's something that will educate you, right? Like a different
Hmm.
perspective. But for me, I've always taken pride in knowing what I know, especially if it's something as trivial as a science fiction show. If I feel this way about something, I don't feel like I need to go out there and convince someone else about how I feel about it. Unless it's a friendly conversation. But you think just like I do, Mike, where you choose your battles. All the times where I've seen people talk about how new Trek is so much better than old Trek, I could have easily jumped in and started saying like mean things, or not even just mean things, but sending long paragraphs of why they're wrong. I always ignored those situations because it's just boring, but it's also not going to do anything for me, at least.
No, it's not going to do anything for you. It's not going to do anything for the person that you're responding to.
Yeah.
Oh, they may think they have a win. You may think you have a win, but honestly, you're just arguing over the internet. You're not actually interacting with the person, presenting your case verbally to them and hearing their case.
And sometimes it's reciprocated too. Like there'll be times I'm talking about classic Trek and the ways I feel about it and the ways Star Trek should be, in my opinion. And I get the same sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes I get the same level of respect from other fans who don't agree with me, right? They don't just jump in say that, oh, classic Trek is boring and outdated. Thankfully, I haven't had any conversations like that too often. It's because the feeling is reciprocated. If you don't act like that yourself with certain people, they're most likely not going to act like that with you. Not all the time, but it goes back to that whole thing of treating other people like how you'd like to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
It has a positive effect. And I think that's if we keep doing that, it's going to eventually lead one step closer to where this Star Trek universe eventually shows of maybe not a utopia. I feel like that's the science fiction part of the story, in my opinion, but we can definitely be better versions of ourselves. I don't think that's science fiction at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I've had conversations with people who aren't Star Trek fans,
Yeah,
and they have asked me why do I like it so much because they don't find it as interesting as I do.
yeah, and that's okay. Not
And
everyone's gonna feel the same way,
no, no, not everyone's gonna like the same thing you like. Not everybody's gonna view the show the same way you do, or a movie the same way you do, or again, you get a book. Doesn't matter if it's an older book or a newer book. Not everybody's gonna take away from that book the same thing you took away from that book.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's beautiful because you can take pride in that yourself. Whatever you know, whatever you took away from that, maybe you'll have some friends you'll have that will agree with you, and it's a nice feeling when you feel like you're not alone on something. But even if you are, it's not a bad thing. I feel like some people take it as a bad thing that you feel the only way you feel about this. Um, but I'm happy with like with Star Trek, with Planet of the Apes, with Star Wars. There are certain things I take pride in that I feel I personally, take away from this. That this is how I think it plays out. This is what I think it means to me.
Mhm.
And I don't have to really convince anybody else about that because it's a waste of time.
Yeah, I mean, when Cash told me that you were into Planet of the Apes, not just the movies, but also the TV series, I'm going, there we go.
It's such a
You
forward-thinking
maniacs!
show.
You did it! You got him interested in your show. Well, and the reason why I say that is because Star Trek can do the same thing. Somebody could watch an
100%.
episode
Yeah.
of Star Trek. It doesn't matter which version of Star Trek it is during the Gene Roddenberry era, or even if you're into the new Trek stuff, you can still get into it. I primarily focus on 66 to 2005 because that's the era that means the most to me.
100%. Same here. And some people are like, "Oh, you must be 50 years old. You must be 60." It's like, no, I don't really like discussing my age online, but you guys can't use that as a defense all the time. We're not all gonna be that age because how old the shows are. You can have people in your 20s feel that way. You can have people in your teens feel that way. It does not matter. It's just the person.
Mhm.
The person has their own way of appreciating things. Nobody can take that away from you. And I think that's why it's beautiful that you can take pride in certain things yourself without having to convince other people. You know why you like it, and I think that's more important than anything else. It doesn't matter how old you are. You don't
I
have to
was
have
7 years old.
nostalgia with these shows.
Mhm. I was 7 years old when I got into Star Trek, and Star Trek was really one of the first live action shows that I really got invested in. I wanted to know more and more about
Right.
how the Star Trek universe worked. I'm not going to say I wasn't invested in shows like Dukes of Hazzard when I was a kid, or the A
Right.
Team when I was a kid, or Knight Rider. Of course I was. I had the toys, but I wasn't as invested in those shows, learning about the lore, learning more about the characters, as I was with Star Trek. I mean, yeah, it's cool to have an action figure of one of the characters that you see on screen, but when you learn about a character's background, what makes the character what they are, and you find out that there's a Bible for each and every series that tells the writers this is who the character is. Let's develop this character. And if you want to add something that's not in the Bible but still stays within the lanes, do it. Let's make these characters interesting. Let's give the fans a reason to care about the predicament that the character's in.
Becomes more than nostalgia at that point.
Mhm.
And I feel like nostalgia is an overused word for the way we feel about these shows. It's like you only like this show because of nostalgia. I hate that. It diminishes everything about how you feel about the show. It's like you only like this because you grew up with it. No. I like it because the storytelling is rock solid.
Not only that, Spock, because it's a bridge to other shows that you can
Right.
still find today and watch today that are new
Exactly.
shows. The Orville, for example, it's a perfect example of being not only an homage and tribute to Star Trek, but also carving its own way.
And
And
modern
having,
television too.
yeah,
You know, people would only expect that level of storytelling from something in the 90s or something. But here it is, a brand new show in, post 2010 that's making a pretty damn good story. Everyone has their own favorite episode, their own favorite season, of course, same with Star Trek. But it's it's hard to really convince people that what we need less of today is less spectacle and more storytelling. You can have spectacle, but it's so overused today.
mhm,
Like with Predator, for example, they would rather make his entire face out of CGI rather than using an animatronic like they did in the first movie. That's kind of the point. Is it's less spectacle and it's more mysticism. You wonder, wow, what kind of face is that? Look at the follicles on his face. What kind of alien is this? But when you see the CGI version, they just try making it a point that, oh, this is badass. He's gonna roar. He's gonna bite somebody's head off. Like it's just, it kind of defeats the purpose. I'm not a big fan of using CGI to cover everything or having a fight in every 2 seconds, unless it's Dragon Ball Z or something like that,
mhm,
where the whole point of the series is fighting, right? But
yeah.
if the series like Star Trek, for example, made its main debut from being a philosophical, provoking show, you can still do that. Someone told me the other day that Star Trek has covered every possible philosophical aspect. I kind of laughed at that. It's not possible to do that because every new generation has new questions. Like
Mhm.
right now, for example, with AI, right? Like everyone is debating the morality of using AI and all these things. Boom, you can have a Star Trek episode about something like that
Yep,
right now.
Star Trek would have been able to tackle that. I mean, heck, in the future on board star bases and starships and even at Starfleet headquarters, they use a highly advanced computer system that can pull up information in an instant,
Yeah,
recreate scenes from history, or create brand new scenes in a holodeck.
it's funny. The amount of people, and I'm sure they're not the same people, but the amount of people who said, "Oh, I wish we had that technology. I wish it was real," and they loved it because it was merely science fiction. The day we finally have in today's life, like AI, the way it is, it's not as powerful as obviously a holodeck, but there's so much stigma around it now. It's like,
Hmm.
didn't you guys want this? Didn't you guys want the idea of technology improving and becoming more autonomous? Why are you getting hung up on the worn out conversations of it replacing people or becoming sentient like Skynet or some other bullshit? It's a tool. It's another part of the extension of the human brain. It's just advancement in general. Like in Star Trek, when the ship flies itself with the computer, that's what it's meant to do. Nobody had a problem with it then. Why should we
Oh,
have a problem with it now?
Because Star Trek has tackled the fact that people are afraid of things that are different than them.
Exactly, but it was science fiction at that point. The moment it becomes real life, the hypocrisy kicks in. It's like, oh no, 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 I only liked it when it was science fiction. I didn't like it when it was actually real. So it actually makes me wonder if we did have the holodeck today, would the same people really enjoy it, or are they gonna backpedal and they say, oh no, we don't need this. It should only be in
Well,
Star Trek.
why should I recreate Yosemite in the holodeck when I can actually go to the real thing?
Right. Because it's well, for if I had to answer that, why not? You can go to the real thing, nothing's stopping you. But if you can literally just walk through a door and get almost the same exact feeling, and I say almost because at the end of the day it's a computer, but if you can just get that same feeling from saving yourself so much travel money and just time, and sure, you're skipping out on a beautiful road trip, you can still do that. But you can also walk through a door and have a nice break, look at the mountains, sit on a bench, take in the fresh air, and feel like you're actually there. That's a great therapeutic thing, and that's a great advancement of technology. I definitely don't see that as a bad thing. It's just how reliant do people become on it?
Yeah.
Because, with AI, right, there's always the bad cases. With anything, there's a bad case. So it's hard to say we can prevent that or we should stop progression of technology because of the bad actors that are out there. Never. We should never stop the progression of technologies because some people will misuse it or a lot of people will misuse it, whatever. There's still an equal amount of people who are going to use it for the right reasons
hmm
and why it
And
was created.
I will admit once again, because I've already admitted it several times during Pop Talk, that I have used AI before to help improve my thumbnails. I still make them myself in Photoshop, but then I'll use AI to say, hey, clean this up, sharpen this image over here, and maybe make it a little bit more vibrant than I was able to in Photoshop. And then I'll go back into Photoshop and still make tweaks
Yeah, and that's okay, man.
because I'm using it as a tool.
And honestly, that's what I think it was used for.
But before we get out of here, Spock, is there anything you like to promote? Anyone you like to promote?
Well, I'm still on Suno. I'm releasing music on there. If people want to check it out, it's still, it's my name, Spock. You can find it on the Discord, or you can go into your browser and do suno.com/@ the @ symbol and Spock with a S at the end, Spock's. That's I want to go with Spock, but some page has that username for some reason, and they've never posted a single thing. I've talked to some of the team members if they're able to get rid of inactive accounts because it would be so much easier for people to find me if my username was just simply Spock. But
hmm
still working on that. But that's mainly what I've been doing recently, and I have a lot of conversations about music in the meantime, what I've been doing, how I've been making it. Um, like some people are confused, like why I'm on Suno since it's an AI generated platform. I don't AI my music. The most I use with AI music is I just take out the vocals because I can't always hire a singer. They cost a
hmm
lot of money, and sometimes you might not end up getting what you want, and I can sing, so I sometimes upload vocals to Suno of me singing, and I, transform it either into another male or sometimes a female, which is kind of funny. Take that or leave that at what you will. People are probably gonna make jokes about that. I don't care. It's funny. I don't get offended by that kind of stuff because it is funny. Turning your voice into a woman, how is that not funny? But you can do all these kinds of great things, and then I've
I
been
was gonna say, even
producing,
in DaVinci Resolve, you can change the pitch and the tone of your voice
yeah,
to make
it's
it sound
fun.
like different things.
It's fun. I like voice change. It's not even voice changing, right? Because voice changing with traditional tools would be more like you're pitching down or up, or you're doing with AI, it's literally generating a brand new stem of audio, and it's using your initial recording, but it's going to be producing something brand new. So that's very crazy an advancement for technology, especially for music. So I've been mainly using that while I still make the beats completely from scratch because
Mhm.
that's personally how I prefer to work. I enjoy having creative decisions and control over pretty much everything. With AI music, everything is still kind of guesswork, and I have nothing against it. You know, everyone who's on Suno, I built quite a good friend group on there. They send me their songs, and they can make some pretty good stuff, even with just base Suno. But I've always preferred using FL Studio. That's how I've worked for the last 16 years, and I don't think that's going to change, honestly. With there, that's the stubborn part of the human inside me. Is no matter how much technology advances, there is still some things I'm going to be hooked onto because that's how I grew up. But you got some people who are making some great stuff with the AI generated music for sure. So that's one thing I'll promote. And YouTube has been kind of quiet right now, so I'm still figuring out in the meantime how I'll bring that back. But it's definitely not a dead project. It's just kind of in hiatus right now. YouTube
Okay.
is kind of in hiatus mainly because my computer is not as good as it was a couple years back, so I have to figure out how I can fix it. Or if worst case comes to worst, I'll have to get a whole new computer, and then I'm back in action, streaming and making Star Trek Online videos again, which I enjoyed doing. But if you haven't already, thank you again, Mike, for putting it in the comments. Feel free to subscribe to my YouTube and Twitch and whatever else you guys want. You know,
Yeah.
keep up to date. You never know when you'll see a video pop up on there.
Yeah, I have all your links in the description on
I
YouTube
appreciate
and
it.
Rumble. It's something I try to do. The thing I forgot to do was use Stream Elements and activate your stream links and have them pop up. And I do apologize about that, but for anybody
Oh,
who is
I
looking
didn't even
for,
notice. No, don't worry about it, man. I appreciate that you even go as far. You're very kind, man. I appreciate it so much. Thank you again.
well, it's like I told Loki, I still believe in helping other channels grow and helping people be seen.
Thank
I
you.
know a lot of people will say that and they don't mean it,
You do.
but
No, you do. I've known you for a long time. You've done nothing but help other channels grow. That's something anyone watching right now should know about Mike is he's a very genuine person. He's a good person and he's a great friend. I'm happy to have known you. If I never appeared on Echo Base those many years ago, I probably would have never known you or Cash or any of those great people I know like Baron. So I'm grateful that, some things happen and you make some really great connections out of it.
and that's the thing. We've known each other since I want to say late 2021
Yeah.
is
It's crazy,
when
man.
we
5 years.
met, and the fact that it was Echo Base Network where we first met, and then it was Paul's channel, the Star Wars guys as it was known as then,
Yeah.
and now it's known as Fandomology, but doing Tuesday Night Trek with you as well. And then, of course, it led to us doing some gaming streams together, joining you on your streams, whether it be your Friday night Star Trek Online streams or, your discussion streams that we're doing together, or, even the episodic series.
Right.
You asking me to do a voice for a character.
Well, I didn't only choose people for the episodic series because I knew they were good voice actors. I chose fans of the actual franchise. I knew how much you love Star Trek, if not more than I do. So who else better to have a part of the team, right? Um, it's tough, uh, coming up with something on your own. And there was just it was a random summer where I just decided because of how much I was into Star Trek Online. I still am. I just haven't played it as much. But just the amount of time I would put in that game and it happened just spontaneously. And that's how good things happen. Just like how we got the original series. Gene Roddenberry just spontaneously thought about making Kirk, Spock, and all these amazing characters. It was like me just one summer spending an entire night making an entire episode with theater mode in Star Trek Online, getting all the voices together, putting them in DaVinci Resolve, and making it possible. And to see that get like 10,000 views and so many likes, it made me so happy because it's like this this is working. This is something that people actually enjoy, and I'm very surprised by that because of how amateur it looks. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's just, you know, budget constraints, right? But it still was enough for fans to see like that there's a story here. I like the level of directing. I like how this, people even probably fans of Star Trek Online enjoyed that they're seeing all their episodes come to life. Um,
Hmm.
so I definitely want to continue doing that. It's such a rewarding experience to see people enjoy that. And I
I
got as
remember
far,
as you were
yeah,
working on it, you were telling me how time consuming it was, not only with the voice clips, but also getting the cinematic clips from the game.
yeah, yeah, because the theater mode is very old, so I had to work within old technology. I was always in their forums. I was even talking to some literal developers from Star Trek Online in their forums, telling them if they could have the chance to throw out an update for their theater mode because it's one of the greatest things about that game is just being able to make your own movies in it. And splicing scenes and having the camera go in a drone view and fly around and do all those things was not really easy, but I enjoyed doing it. I think the demotivating part to continue it was I was getting a little lovesick of Star Trek Online because I'd been playing it almost every day. But I think because I haven't played it in such a long time now, I'm feeling that urge again, and I want to continue it more than just one episode because uh, I got the intro done for episode 2. So
Hmm.
I just need to check it again because I made that like 2 years ago. I want to see how it looks now. I still have Paul's voice in there, so I'll have to reach out to him again. Purple Valkyrie, I reached out to her a year ago, and she said she's still very much on board of playing Captain Arbol, which makes me so happy. It's like the captain of the show, and we're still gonna have an awesome, consistent voice. And I chose her not because of her reputation alone as being a great YouTuber, but she has such an iconic voice. Like I really thought that's something that Star Trek always showed was with Kirk, Pike, Picard, Janeway. They all have and Cisco, right? They all have their own voices that stand out from each other. And that's one thing we should continue, if anything. Even if it's like a silly little trope, I wouldn't mind continuing that trope because it's nice to have a voice that stands out from the rest.
And
In a great
it
way
was
too.
it was fun for all of us. I think I can speak for all of us when I say this to record those lines.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was even because of you guys considering of voicing some of them myself. I'm just not much of an actor, but um the amount of, enthusiasm you guys put in those lines made me happy because you didn't see this when I heard the voice lines. I was like, "Oh wow, you guys really enjoy this idea." That made me so happy. You didn't see this as like, "Oh, here's like a little silly thing. I'm going to be a silly voice." No, you weren't silly. You sounded like a Klingon, and that's just it made me feel good that what I'm doing actually has some weight to it and people like it. So I'm definitely gonna make some more. Um, I don't know realistically if I can cover all of the episodes in Star Trek Online. That would be
Mhm.
cool because there's just so many. But I definitely want to get a lot of the key ones out of the way that are great stories. Because if nobody's played Star Trek Online, which is okay, not everybody's a gamer. There's some really good stories in there that people should see.
Well, the thing for me, I can't speak for anyone else, but when it came to voicing my character, when you ask me to voice a Klingon, I'm going to make sure that Klingon is honorable and ready to fight as a warrior.
As you should.
I am not a sniveling Ferengi. I am not a Romulan. I am Klingon. I thirst for battle, blood wine, and an occasional tog hunt.
Man, that's so
And if
good
you do
still.
not believe that, you are without honor.
And take
You are
this
the
as a
disgrace to
compliment.
your house.
Take this as a compliment too, Mike. Your voice has gotten deeper over the years, so that's gonna work better if you think about it. Because Klingons have very deep voices.
Well, you know what it is sometimes for me when I do voices, even on Pop Talk. As
Hmm.
long as I'm not thinking too hard about it, getting the voice exactly where it needs to be. If I just go like I'm riding a bike and just start singing the lines, I can do it. It's like when I do my Optimus Prime or my Megatron. As long as I don't think about it, I can do my version of those characters.
And that's where you're
That's
more skilled than me. And not just in the voice alone, but that level of thought. Because one thing that was really, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way for the series, but one thing that was really hard for me making the episodic series was convincing myself that this isn't silly. Spending time making the scene. Does this look cringy? Does this look goofy? Like, I don't know why my brain just is so what's the word? I overthinking is one word, but self-conscious. There you go. I don't know why I'm so self-conscious about certain things. That's just who I am, I guess. But I guess it could also make for a good result in the end of the day because you really thought hard about this scene. But it's something I wish I could shake off and just, do. Don't even think about like this so
You're
hard.
creative, Spock. That's the thing. It doesn't matter if it's working on the episodic series. Doesn't matter if it's working on your music. You want to make sure you put out the best material possible.
Right.
I
But
can't
it's
tell
not
you
silly. It's
how
not
many
silly,
times
you know?
I've started a thumbnail and then I deleted that thumbnail because I
Hmm.
didn't like the way it was turning out.
Yeah. It's exactly like that. Yeah. And the episodic series after watching sometimes I still watch the first episode. It's not silly. I don't know why I was thinking that because it's hard to see the finished product if it's not done yet. And I think the hardest thing for me is to convince myself to be a director, even though that's never something I've studied, that's never something I've ever pursued. But because of the love I have for Star Trek, I think it just comes naturally. And being an artist, like DJ Ronnie says, is like being self conscious. It's a normal thing, but I just wish I didn't see it that way. I think it gets better as it goes on, like that level of thinking, because you already
Mhm.
have a reference point. But when you don't have a reference point and you're making it for the first time, it's hard to convince yourself that this is serious. This is going to be intense. This is going to be cool. And then you see like the character's mouth isn't even moving. It's like, are people really going to like this? I don't know. But the voice acting helped. It helped so much that people didn't care about that. They just enjoyed it. They enjoyed the story.
Well, let me ask you this: were you afraid of the reception it might receive
I
from the
was
fan
afraid of the
base?
reception. I won't lie to you because being human at the end of the day is also as admittedly wrong as this is, being afraid of what other people think, right? Um, as much as I at the end of the day don't usually care about what other people think, it's hard to put myself in this position and be like, "Oh, I'm a Star Trek director now," and nobody's going to take that seriously if the episode is goofy, but it's not, because you have to just trust yourself that you know what you're doing, that you know what Star Trek is meant to be. So just trust yourself. And even if this doesn't look high budget, it doesn't matter because in the end of the day, the people watching this are going to get the gist. They're going to get the point. They're going to like it. And that's something that flew over my head is because I was too worried about how people are going to see this as a low budget thing versus the entire arc overarching story. And that was more powerful than how low budget it seemed. Because as much as I wish I was really good with Blender and Unreal Engine, which there's always still time to learn, um, I felt like that was going to be a hindrance on me, but it wasn't. Thank God. Um, it was just as long as you have an idea, you can even make a Play-Doh version of like you just get like a couple pieces of Play-Doh stick figures, and you can still tell an amazing Star Trek story, as goofy as that sounds, as long as you have a great idea.
Yeah, and you want to know something? I can relate when you're working on something and you don't think it's as good as you want it to be. The best piece of advice I was ever given was establish your own style.
Right.
So when it comes to your music, you've obviously established your own style of music. When it comes to creating video content, you've established your own style.
Thank you. Yeah, and you bring a good point with music. It's funny that I've been able to figure it out no problem when it comes to that regard, but when it comes to something like directing, it's like I have an issue I still need to overcome. It's not as bad as before, but it's the same principle, like you say, just establishing a style and rolling with it. Because I don't need to be the best. I don't care about being the best. I think it's arrogant to think that, oh, I'm going to make something better than the previous Star Trek shows. But to continue in their legacy is all I want to do. That's all that matters to me at the end of the day.
Mhm. There's nothing wrong with using something as a reference point to learn from, to examine in your own perspective with your own eyes and say, okay, how could I take what was created here and then establish my own take on it?
Yeah.
Because let's face it, no matter what it is, stories or games, whatever it is, somebody had an idea that they worked on, they released, someone else picked up that idea, improved upon it, and throughout the years kept improving upon it because other people would take it and mold it in a different vision, but would make it better. I mean, look at cars. Look how advanced cars are now compared to 100 years ago.
Yeah. I'm sure the first person who made the combustible engine, right? They were probably thinking like, oh, they don't want to switch from chariots to this, like Henry Ford, for example. They probably don't want to switch from what they're already used to something that seems wacky. But now that's like the hallmark of vehicles that we drive today. They've all established from that point of time. Of course, they've improved, um, but it takes one step of confidence forward. You have to have more confidence, and you have to have just yeah, just confidence, honestly, at the end of the day. Don't worry about how different it is, or in my case for the episodic series, don't worry about it just being in the Star Trek Online engine. Just do it. Just like Shia LaBeouf would say. Just do it and enjoy what you're making, because in the end of the day, this is supposed to be fun, and it's supposed to be what you're trying to make it to be. And in my case, I wanted to make Star Trek. And the main reason I was making that was to make a point, because that was during the reign of Discovery and the announcement of Strange New Worlds and all these shows I wasn't really a big fan of. And I feel like people forgot what Star Trek meant. So watching The Cage today, kind of gave me a bit more inspiration again to just remind myself where we started from when it came to Star Trek and where it should continue going. It shouldn't be The Expanse. It shouldn't be a dramatic television prestige show. It shouldn't be 912.0. It should literally be a
It shouldn't
philosophical
be
space
what it
exploration
isn't.
show.
Yep. It, you know, I'm not saying Star Trek needs to stay in its lane, but Star Trek has already established what it is: a philosophical look at a possible future of not just humanity, but of the entire world,
Yeah.
the entire galaxy, if you want to put it that way. I know I butchered
Or
that,
galaxies, right? There's still so much to explore that we haven't even seen in our little bubble of Star Trek.
but we see ourselves, not just here in the United States, but around the world. We're all different. But Star Trek presents the possibility that we could all put our differences aside and start working together.
Right.
Do I see it happening, you know, in say 20 years, 30 years? No, I
No.
don't.
I don't even see
Like
it happening in 100 years.
no, like you, I don't see Star Trek's utopian future coming to fruition. But I could still hope that someday we'll find a way to put our differences aside and actually work together as human beings.
And that's all it takes. Even if you know in your own realistic point of view that it may not happen in the 30 or 50 years or 100 years, all it takes is one person who believes in that idea. So the more people who start to believe in that idea, right, it spreads. Society now compared to 50 years ago was completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So who's to say it won't keep changing, of course, either for the
No,
best or for the worst.
it's going to be changing. It's going to keep evolving. It's going to keep rotating like a clock.
The pendulum is going to keep swinging, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's going to go from bad to good, and then eventually it's going to stay somewhere where we all agree should never change. That's kind of the message I'm not a big fan of with the new shows, is that they're basically trying to say that that utopia was false. They're becoming more gritty now, and it's taking a turn for the worse because the Earth got destroyed, or I don't really know what they're doing now. It's kind of a mess to an extent to say that now humans are allowed to, especially in Starfleet, curse at each other, fight each other, be immature, maybe even possibly kill each other. Like, that's not working together. Honestly, that's the only message that I care about when it comes to Star Trek. Um, you compare uh, Deep Space Nine to TOS, right? Completely different tones, but in the end of the day, they all hold the same core message. They all still feel like Star Trek.
Yeah, they still adhere to Gene Roddenberry's vision of the future, the template that was laid out 60 years ago. I mean, sure, at the time of Deep Space Nine, around the 30th anniversary, Deep Space Nine's in its fourth season, but it's still adhering to the visions and the beliefs of Gene Roddenberry. Maybe bending it a little bit, but they're not breaking it.
Yeah, because they, like you said, it can't stay in the same exact lane forever. It'll get boring, but they can introduce new things while still simultaneously keeping it within the same core messaging, where it's
Mhm.
supposed to be about the human condition in the end of the day,
Yeah.
and also to be the best versions of ourselves. Well, also not just ourselves, but all the other aliens that exist in the galaxy. Um,
And,
yeah,
and I like that you said that Star Trek isn't the Expanse. It shouldn't try to be the Expanse. It shouldn't try to be Babylon 5. What it is Star Trek. A hopeful,
exactly.
optimistic view of the future. Where, if anything from modern day is brought into the story, it's the aliens
Right. We didn't see
who
back
bring
in
it
the
to
day
us.
like Star Trek copy what Star Wars was doing just because it was popular. But it seems like now it's whatever is popular, we have to adopt that somehow into our show.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, that's what was the demise of the franchise was the fact that you had the prequels, the Star Wars prequels. Well, then the studios all across Hollywood decide, you know what? We need to have a prequel to one of our movies or one of our shows.
Exactly.
And we had Enterprise. Love it or hate Enterprise, I think Enterprise was part of the demise of Star Trek in the early 2000s. Fans weren't looking to go backward. Star Trek was always about going forward.
Forwards. Yeah, I agree.
And there are episodes of Enterprise I do like. I'm not going to hate completely on the show. I just think it was a bad direction for Star Trek.
Because it did introduce the idea that we can sort of play around with time now. That's kind of what Discovery did, right? They
Hmm.
also sort of made a prequel as well.
Yeah. And they've continued that with Strange New Worlds.
Yep. Where we just want to see a new crew. and they
Hmm.
wonder why the Orville is doing so well. It's because I think we enjoy the fact that we don't know any of them. We're oblivious to almost this entire universe, so it's like starting new. That's already a win in that sake.
That's why I was so excited 3 years ago when season 3 was getting ready to premiere.
Yeah,
It's
and
because we had that long wait between season 2 and season 3.
now it's even
So
longer. Now it's even longer. If they come out with season 4, I think the wait has been a lot longer from the gap between season 2 and 3. It's crazy. If we ever do get season 4.
I don't know that we are. The
Seth
longer it
supposedly
takes,
Seth, I think, said in an interview recently that supposedly the episodes are all written, but
mhm.
he needs somebody to film them.
But are you going to be able to get all the cast back?
I
Are they
think they
tied to different
can.
projects?
Obviously, not Norm, right? Because he unfortunately passed away.
Yeah.
But they've already done a tribute for him in season 3. I just. I think it's kind of annoying to me when we're talking about the Orville that he says if he's wondering if he can get anybody to film it. I mean, dude, you're Seth MacFarlane. You can do this. You can get a
Yeah.
group of filmographers to make this for you.
He shouldn't have any issues with getting somebody to say, "Yeah, I'll direct." A full season. I mean, Jonathan Frakes
Right.
is available. He's not working on any Star Trek projects right now, and
Well, I'm sure starting a show, well, not a show, but making a season isn't an easy thing, right? Like you have to get schedule conflicts out of the way. You got to work out all these things. So, but
not
even all
only
that aside, it shouldn't make it impossible for this to happen. And he's
not
making it
only that,
sound like it's impossible.
yeah, because here's something I'm theorizing. Another factor is they're going to have to rebuild all the sets.
Yep. Which is money, right?
Yeah,
He doesn't have to manually rebuild them all. So I'm not sure why he'd be worried about that. He just
Disney.
Disney
Orville
wouldn't
Orville is
mind
under
as long as they get the
Disney
money.
right now, but I don't
Right.
think Disney's interested in producing another season of the Orville. You
Which is probably the obstacle that they're facing, if that's the
Mhm.
theory, because that fits into the same scheduling conflict issue as you have schedule conflicts and you also have studio conflicts. Does the studio want to compensate you for this? Like, we'll let you make season 4, but we're not going to give you the funding. Like, they
Mhm.
have to do it out of their own pocket, which is why it's going to be a little bit more difficult. I think still, as chauvinist as this sounds, with the amount of money Seth MacFarlane has, he could do it out of his own pocket and he won't be broke. We're not asking for something so impressive CGI wise for us to still be invested, but I
No,
think
the,
that
the fact that the Orville was still using practical models
right,
on top of CGI.
then that's how you should
That,
do it. That's how you should do it because it looks more realistic, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's the precedent that they set for season 3 because they call it New Horizons and the filming looked more professional, it looked more high budget. I feel like now they've locked themselves into that. So if they make
Yeah,
season
more.
4 and it looks like season 1 and 2, they're not going to be happy. But when in reality we wouldn't care. We love seasons 1 and 2. We don't mind if the next season takes a little bit of a step back in budget as long as the stories are still awesome.
As long as the stories are still good, because remember with season 3, not only did they cut it by a few episodes, they also made the episodes that we received longer than what we received in season 2 and season 1.
Right. Yeah, they were way longer. Season 3 had also some very depressing episodes too because it was post-war, so it was after the whole Kalon incident, and you had to deal with the tragedy of war, which we don't usually see too much even in Star Trek, because after the Dominion War, we don't really see the fallout of what happens afterwards. We're still in mystery as what happens when the Voyager ship comes back home. Like we don't exactly know what took place exactly afterwards, except if you go to Nemesis, and Nemesis doesn't really tell you much, and it's not really a great film in that regard, but. You still see Janeway; she becomes an admiral. Sort of get an idea, but the Orville does a great depiction, in my opinion. Love it or hate season three. Of there being necessary sad episodes. Some
Yeah.
people don't like sad episodes, and that's okay. I understand, but
Well,
I'm not a big advocate for not there being any sad episodes. It's okay
well,
for that to be done.
so say we get a season 4 eventually.
Right.
What's the power shift going to be like? Because the alliance has shifted, as you remember in season 3 in the
Right.
Orville, between the Mocklins and the Kalons.
It feels like you're along with the ride, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
when they did season three, it was, if I'm not mistaken, that season takes place the exact time many years later that they had in real life. So I forget the amount of years that there was between seasons 2 and 3, but they used that also in season 3. Like it's been 5 years later, and it's like wow, like everything is advanced. The Orville got a refit.
Mm-hmm.
Technology looks crazier. So they're probably going to do the same thing in season 4. It's already been like what, 3 years you said since we got
Yeah,
season
three
3.
3 years
Um,
since the conclusion of season 3.
right. So by the time we get season 4, I'm assuming it's going to be 3 years later, and or that's if it comes out this year, or whenever it comes out later, we're going to follow that path, and the technology is going to probably improve. Not like an 80-year difference, but maybe the Orville gets another refit. Maybe it's equipped with new stuff. We probably see new crew members because, spoiler alert, I'm going to say a spoiler right now for season 3. For anyone watching, mute yourself right now. After Charlie dies, we're going to probably see a new introduction of a crew member. And I'm all for that. I really am. Like, I don't mind new crew members at all. And I think that's the one thing New Trek really underestimates with us fans is they think we only care about nostalgia when really we also love new characters too. We don't mind that idea. It's just you don't have to force it to be connected to Ed Mercer or someone else that we know. Just brand new. What's wrong with that? Brand new. I think that's okay.
Nothing's wrong with that. But another factor that makes me still think to this day, ever since seeing the final episode of season 3, that tells me we're not getting any more Orville, regardless
If not,
of what
yeah, it probably
what's
like a spin-off if anything. It felt
except
like a conclusion
yeah,
because
that's what I was going to get at.
yeah,
When you bring back Laura and you have everybody there in that final scene before you see the exterior shot of the Orville
right.
moving away from the camera, it really did feel like the end of the show.
But you could also make the conclusion that that's just a happy ending for that season.
True.
Like, you could have a season end on a really high note, and then when they bring it back again, it starts on a high note, and then boom, you're back into the chaos of the Kalons. We still haven't really discovered much about the Krill. Ed has that daughter that he has to go and figure out how to save because I'm sure he doesn't want her growing up with the Krill and becoming a Krill soldier. So there's still a lot of stuff that they can untangle. It's just when are we gonna get it, man? Like I don't know. Um, I still think there's room to tell, but at this point, I wouldn't also be against them making an Orville spin-off show or something. New crew,
Or having an
whatever,
Orville movie.
or an
I'm
Orville
not saying a
movie. Yeah,
theatrical release.
hell
Just
yeah,
make it a 2 hour long movie.
yeah. Because right now it's suffering. And I hate to say suffering, but it's suffering the same thing the original series dealt with. Right, 3 seasons where there was still so much to tell afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
At least we got Star Trek Continues. So maybe
Yeah.
one day we'll get a really high budget Orville YouTube fan series. I don't know. It's hard to say. I
Well,
mean, we've already got a
you
couple
never
that
know
are
with the
pretty good.
way AI is going. Who's to say someone might not try to make a Orville season using AI?
Yeah, I mean, I have my reservations on that sometimes.
I do too. I'd rather have the
Yeah, because
actual
sometimes
actors.
AI can look pretty weird if you're making the entire film out of it. But I have nothing against using AI in movies if you're gonna fill it in. like maybe as a green screen effect or a view screen or an alien that appears on the bridge, but everything else is still, actors in suits and practical
Mhm.
everything else. But yeah, maybe, dude, maybe AI is making budget constraints a lot easier these days. You don't have to worry about getting everything with CGI or even an actor for that regard. You can actually bringing an AI character and have it look very realistic and serve its purpose. Could happen. Even for the ship shots, right? I mean, I wouldn't know anyone who would have the skill to really film it on the same way that they did with the actual show to get a practical model, film it around it, and get a camera. Maybe they'll just use AI for that part too. Never know. It would still look good. Um, but hopefully it doesn't come down to that. As much as I don't mind it, I really want to see the continuation of their story with Ed Mercer and Kelly and the rest of them. And I really have grown attached to that crew, just like I grew attached to Kirk and Bones and Spock. Just to, if we were lucky enough to continue that show as well
Mhm.
before its
Yeah,
cancellation.
because you do become invested in these characters, whether it's Star Trek,
Yeah.
The Orville, or any other show that starts off, has a good run for its first season, has a good run for its second season. Sometimes shows get a third season and continue on. Other times they get a third season like The Orville, and then we haven't seen anything. I mean, even Scott Grimes, I think it was last year or the year before, where he even said that they were still hopeful that there would be a Orville season
Yeah, I
4.
remember that. Yeah, because there's never been like, usually with most shows we get confirmation, right? It's canceled or it's not canceled. With
And
the
we've never
Orville, it's like a mystery. We don't even
yeah,
know.
we've never received official word about it being canceled or if it's on hiatus.
Yeah, nothing. Just nothing. He's been too busy with Ted, in my opinion.
Which I tried watching Ted, and I just couldn't get into it.
No, because it's not like Family Guy. I think the first Ted movie is the only great thing to come out of it. It was funny. The second one, I know some people like, but I like the first one the most, and that's about it. And then Family Guy. Because if you're doing those kind of things, then I, f- I feel like this Seth MacFarlane is just trying to make another kind of Family Guy with Ted.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's how it comes across.
yeah, and Star Trek is copying Family Guy by making Lower Decks. It's just kind of silly. I don't know. I don't really think Star Trek needs to copy those tropes. Having a silly cartoon show, even the animated series wasn't silly. It
No,
was just a cartoon version of the show. That's it, like Scooby Doo.
sold in 22 minutes, and that's why I consider the animated series season 4 and season 5 of the live action series.
And that's okay. For me, it's Star Trek continues, but it's hard to really decide. I really like all of them.
Yeah,
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 no, they
because
they took it seriously even in the cartoon format.
yeah, it shows what creative people can do when they not only get behind a property that maybe they know well, or even if they don't know it well, they believe in it, and
Right.
they want their potential audience to believe in it. At least they used to. But I do appreciate you joining me here tonight,
This was
Spock, and of
fun, man.
course,
Thanks for the conversation.
oh, thank you for taking time out of your Saturday to join me, and to everybody who joined us tonight. We had, of course, you, Lady Mist, Tim was here, and Connie Cleary was also watching over on the Cosme side for a while. But for everybody who was in the chat, Lady Mist, of course, Tim had a wannabe showed up. Let me just find him real quick. There he is. And Jace was here. Of course, DJ popped in, and we had some lurkers, and I appreciate the lurkers. I mean, whether you're in the chat, whether you're not in the chat, but you're still listening, you're still lurking, I appreciate you all stopping by and checking this out, and I hope we haven't turned you away from checking out future episodes of The Adventure Continues, a Star Trek discussion, or any of the content on the channel. But, I don't do this alone. With all of the support that I've gotten from yourself, Spock, from Lady Miss, from everybody who's come into the chat at one point or another, I do appreciate everybody's support. And even if, some people check it out and, they decide, this isn't for them, that's fine too. Maybe one day they'll return.
Yeah. Yeah, because a
You
lot of
never
this
know.
is, breaking down stuff, and some people are like, "Quiet! I'm trying to watch the movie," but it's, that's the whole point of this is breaking down things.
And breaking it down, discussing it, giving our thoughts on the episode and what the character might be thinking at the time. And of course, hearing what everyone else has to say.
Yeah.
And by everyone else, that's everybody in the chat, whether you're in the chat on Cosby, whether you're in the chat on Rumble, YouTube, Blaze, wherever someone decides to stream, call their streaming platform home. It's because of all you guys that we're all here. I enjoy doing live streams because I get to interact in real time with people instead of, giving a response to something, a few hours later or maybe a few days later to a question that somebody might have had. That's why I do live streams, for the real time interaction and, just to see all of you. And I want to invite you all to join Baron, Cash, and myself, channel members, and anyone else who wants to come on the panel tomorrow evening, because we will be watching the 2026 Masters of the Universe movie. Now, I've already given my thoughts and opinion on that movie back when I went and saw it last month. And we are going to be watching it. And I'm going to look forward to seeing what you all have to say about it in the chat, hearing what you all have to say about it. Give your perspective. I had some misgivings about the movie. There are things about the Masters of the Universe lore that I strongly believe that they ignored. And they only focused on one aspect. But again, I've already given my opinion. Tomorrow, it's about you all giving your opinion on the movie. And for anyone who happens to like it, well, more power to you. Anyone who doesn't like it, more power to you. We don't have to like and dislike every single thing that a friend likes. If Spock came on here and said, I don't like the cage, and this is why, I wouldn't go in a hissy fit about it. I'd want to hear why he doesn't like the episode.
Right.
I mean, heck, I'm sure when we get to it, when we talk about Code of Honor during The Adventure Continues, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of us who have our own takes on the episode. How good it is, how bad it is, this, that, and the other. But again, I appreciate you all being here, and I hope to see you the next time that we are live with The Adventure Continues, especially with it being bi-weekly. I do want to let you all know that the next episode of The Adventure Continues will actually be on Wednesday, August 5th, instead of a Saturday, because Saturday, August 8th will be a special edition of Pop Talk as we rewatch Transformers the movie to celebrate its 40th anniversary on the date that it originally came out. And of course, that date being August 8th, of course, the year was 1986. And here it is 40 years later. So I thought, let's do another watch party of the movie just for the 40th anniversary.
I forget, does that movie take place after the show ends, or is it during the show?
It takes place during. Actually, I shouldn't say during. It takes place between season 2 of G1 and season 3.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm
So
currently still on season 2.
it's the bridge between the season.
Okay, that's cool. I like when they used to do that, like X-Files and everything.
And DJ Ronnie G says, I'm uploading my new show opening as its own video shortly. Awesome, brother.
Nice.
Awesome. If you want to share that in the Discord or in the X group later, go ahead, brother. I'd love to check it out. I impersonated the opening of GoldenEye. Ooh, nice.
Nice. Good movie. End game.
Mm-hmm. It was a challenging game back then. At least I thought it was.
If you played it on the N64, for sure.
Yeah.
It was a lot tougher with the controls. I think I played it on, I don't remember if it was PS1 or PS2. It was one of those.
But everybody, thank you again for joining us. Hope to see you again tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And until then, everybody, please subscribe to Spock. His links are in the description below. Subscribe and follow him. And until
Thank you,
next
brother.
time, live long and prosper. Oh, thank you.
Peace and long
And Spock,
life.
Jewel on True.
Joel on True.
And for anybody who doesn't know, that's the Romulan greeting for goodbye. But everybody, you have yourselves a good night.